Peak Wealth Management proudly presents Finding True Wealth with certified financial planner Nick Hopwood and accredited investment fiduciary Jim Pilat. Nick and Jim believe by making simple, good financial decisions, you can retire with confidence. And now, let's turn it over to your hosts, Nick and Jim.
Welcome everyone to episode 129 of the Retire with Confidence podcast. My name's Nick.
And I'm Jim.
And today we're talking about college as a business decision. But first, speaking of college, Michigan's 3-0.
Yeah.
They look pretty good.
Looking better than expected, right?
Yeah. I mean, Washington was worse than advertised, but 3-0, can't complain about that.
No.
And they did throw the ball. They did throw.
Finally did, yeah.
Yeah. And
had some success with it.
And we punished Rocky Lombardi.
Yeah.
For what he did to us last year.
Which is always fun, right? Yeah. Payback.
I didn't even know he transferred. I was shocked.
Either.
I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, I was surprised at that too.
Whoa, what's going on here? And but you know, it worked out. So the first Big Ten test is Saturday, Rutgers.
Yep.
And at Rutgers, you know, I'll always think of like 79-0 Rutgers, where they only got one first down or something.
Yeah.
But they're better.
Yeah.
In fact, last year we had to beat them in overtime.
Right.
And last year it was crazy, but still, it was an overtime game.
Yeah, they made a coaching change, and they've put some better teams out on the field. So.
And then the next week is at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So that'll be a good one. Yes. Wisconsin, I don't think they're as good as maybe we thought. You know.
But they'll always be a good test.
Yeah,
everybody kind of
solid.
Views that as the first big test. Yeah.
They're solid.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. If the timing of that works out, I could be at that game.
Ah.
Could take the boy.
There you go. That would be pretty cool.
He's got a soccer game in Milwaukee at 10.
Yeah. So
if the Wisconsin game's at 3:30, I can make that happen.
Plenty of time, yeah.
But if the game's at noon,
a little tight.
I don't know. Yeah. So anyway,
cool idea though.
Why would you choose your college based on a business decision? That's crazy. I mean, it's just a 4-year party.
That seems to be a common narrative though, right? A lot of people think this is going to be great. I'm going to college. It's going to be the time of my life. But there's a lot of repercussions to that line of thinking.
Yeah. Where does the business part come in?
To me, what it is, you know, what is the goal with college, right? You're going to get an education and to come out with a degree.
Yes.
So is the degree that you're getting, is it going to lead to a job that pays you significantly, you know, enough to warrant the college decision that you're making? So, you know, I think examples of that in my mind are, you know, teachers. I've run into teachers over the years, right, who went to, you know, small private schools, racked up well over $100,000, $120,000, $30,000 in student loan debt to come out and have a job where they make $34,000 a year. You know, and it's tough, right? Because these individuals, they live in the parents' basement. They're splitting the student loan payments with the parents, and they still can't afford to get out. They have no hope of getting out of the parents' house because the student loan payments are so high.
And what if the parents, you know, can't get ahead for retirement if they're making those loan payments?
Yeah. Right, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because it can easily. That's the thing. It has these repercussions, right? It's a snowball effect with some of these decisions.
So for me, I'm trying to think about, you know, the business decision. In fact, it was a business decision for my family, because when my grandfather passed away, my dad took that money and bought 4 years of MET, the MET, like back in '86, the original year or something. Huh. And so back then you couldn't transfer that money out of state, so it had to stay at a state school in Michigan. Now the rules have changed, and the program, in my opinion, is not as good as it was. Yeah. But my dad, I can remember when I was like 11 years old, he's like, well, as long as you choose an in-state school in Michigan, and so like that was it. Yeah. Right? I knew that it was like Michigan State, Central, Western, Eastern, and that was it.
Right.
So I only applied to Michigan State, and Western. And that, I guess it was a business choice, right? Because I knew if we saved money on the side, my dad put some money aside, I should say my parents put money aside. I also worked in high school and college, and so I was able to come out with no loans. okay?
Yeah.
Because the Met covered the tuition and the other money. And like, I knew how much money we had. So I wasn't like, going to live in the brand new condos on campus that were $1,000 a room.
Yeah.
Like I paid like $400, maybe $440 a month.
And you rode the bus.
Yeah, that's right. Rode the bus all the way to Bursley.
Right.
So definitely a business decision now that I'm reflecting on my own experience. So, I think it's great for kids to have skin in the game. Oftentimes parents will say, well, we want them to have some responsibility, right? So they can start to learn. And I think that's great.
Yeah.
Other parents say, well, my parents paid for all of mine, so I'm going to pay that forward and pay for all of it. And other parents say, hey, I didn't get anything, and I figured it out.
Right.
So now my kids have to figure it out too. Tough love.
Right. Sometimes I think the skin in the game is valuable, but it's also something that is pretty hard to teach the day you're shooing the kid out of the house to go to college.
You got to be learning through over time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think they need to start learning the value of money and the value of what they're getting for it, right? The value of the education, the value of whatever, right? The clothes they're getting, the shoes they're getting, the car they drive, right? All these things, they need to start learning all along that there's value associated with it. And, the money that we're paying is not just free money falling from the sky, so we need to make sure that we're treating it with respect and so on.
Absolutely.
And I think that trickles right over into college.
Do you think your kids are learning?
I think we're trying. I mean, we're trying pretty hard to, to give them ideas on money and the value of money and why we need to save it and why, we need to think about what we spend it on, and are we mindful with what we're buying, and is it a want or a need, right? And I think all those things can spill over into college, right? Because college, is it a want or a need? Right? And you can look at that like this is the school that you choose, right? Because you can get a good education from a lot of schools, right?
Absolutely.
You don't have to have, you're not only going to get a good job if you get a degree from this school, right? This University of Michigan or whatever, right? Whatever your prestigious school is. But a lot of times those college decisions come down to wants. They want the experience. They want to have fun. They want to go to these football games. They want to go to that, right? And not that that's bad necessarily, but I think it's important to think about how are we going to accomplish that goal and what are the trade-offs, right? There's a trade-off to every decision that you make.
Yeah, always a sacrifice.
Yep.
What if you do make that $34,000 income coming out and you have a $200,000 loan? I mean, that's possible, right? Maybe if you're in some sort of social work line of work, you get the government forgiveness, right? But that's a big if, because we've seen, according to the Wall Street Journal, 99% of the applicants who have applied for forgiveness were rejected for one reason or another. Could have been a technicality. Maybe they apply again and it worked. I'm just saying 99% is insane.
Right.
So if you're relying on that, kind of like, well, yeah, I'm relying on a football scholarship, right?
Yeah.
Well, good luck, right? But if I'm relying on forgiveness, that's a big if. And I don't even, it's hard making recommendations for young, people in their 20s when they're saying, well, I'm banking on forgiveness. But what if it doesn't work?
Right, and I think they've even acknowledged that the program has problems. We know that it doesn't pay nearly enough. But I mean, what if they improve it by 50%? Right, that's still an awful lot of people that are not getting it taken care of. Right, so forgiveness is not a route that I would have a lot of confidence in.
What about? Okay, so a friend of mine over the summer said, my kids are. This is what he said. I worked at Taco Bell as a kid and I hated it. It was terrible. Like, well, I didn't work at Taco Bell, but I worked at Chi-Chi's. Okay, so Chi-Chi's is a little bit better, maybe. I don't know. It still stink like grease when you come out.
A little bit, yeah.
So, but I don't. Was it hard work? Yes. But did I learn a lot? Absolutely. I don't think of it as a terrible experience because I really learned so much about life, and I got money. Right? What can I do with that money? I could put gas in my car, pay for my car insurance, save some money, so I could use that in college as well. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was like 2 nights a week kind of deal. Now, but he said I worked at Taco Bell and I hated it, and I made $4.25 an hour, and I don't want my kids to do that. Their job right now is to get good grades. And I thought, okay, well, that's cool, right? Like, I get that. But there's so much that you could learn at Taco Bell, really. You learn about people, you learn about hard work, discipline. It builds character, okay?
Right.
So
plus it helps reinforce the, how we get the money to pay for these things.
Yeah. So I think that he's missing, like, what do we say, the trees through the forest or whatever that is.
Yeah.
I think that he's missing that. I think the kids are going to miss out on that because while focus only on the academic part, right, there's all these other things that they could be learning as well. Plus have some money for the college so they can have less loans later.
Right.
I worked at Chi-Chi's, and I also worked at Emden in school, in college. And so the thing that was terrible about Emden is that they make you work on Saturday mornings in football season. Like it's required.
Non-negotiable, huh?
So I would show up at like 6 a.m. on Saturday mornings in the fall, and they're like, they would have too many people there, right? Too many cooks in the kitchen. So I'm like, what do you guys want me to do? And I was in really bad shape, right? 6 a.m. on a Saturday, after you went to bed at like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And they're like, go fold these, sweatshirts and put them on the rack. I folded like 100 sweatshirts, and then there's literally nothing to do, but they want me to stay until 10 a.m., you know? So you're just standing around, Right. But that was terrible. But normally I'd work like on Sunday afternoon or, Thursday night or whatever, and you just make a little money so you can live a little in college, and it was a good learning experience. So I just think that if you're in a position where you don't have the MET and you don't have a 529 and you're looking at, if you want to go to Notre Dame at $70,000 a year and you have nothing, that you could have $300,000 loans, you have to come at it as a business decision and say, if I am saddled with these $300,000 in 4 years from now, I better be making really good money.
Right.
Like coming out of school, I better be making great money. And oftentimes that's not the case.
Right.
So, what's wrong with OCC to OU, right? And you're going to get good education, okay?
Right.
You're not going to have the same experience, but you're also not going to be paying on it forever.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, it comes down to what's the goal, right? Is it to get the education, to get a job, or is it a 4-year vacation, I suppose, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So get this. This is part of this Wall Street Journal article as well. This is very interesting. Now, I don't know what we read into this, but right now, the male to female ratio at universities is females make up 60%. I was like, wow, that's like a lot, right? It's like lopsided. And that's been growing over time. Okay? And then the second part is females are more likely to finish. The men are dropping out at a higher rate. So they're not getting the full degree. So less people coming in on day one and then less people getting the degree. So the implication is that, fast forward how many years, there's going to be twice as many women with college degrees than men. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So this is like the opposite of like 50 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So what made me think about this, what really had me noodling on this was, what about pregnancy and staying home, going back to work? Like, if a lot of the college degree people are leaving the workforce for many years, like what kind of effect might that have?
Yeah, that's longer term thinking that could obviously have an impact.
Just something that I thought was interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of it,
right.
but I thought it was worth
interesting
mentioning.
statistic. Yeah.
Yeah. So hey, if you're making it a business decision, it's not all about the football games and the parties and all that.
But I think the one thing you kind of mentioned it at 2 different points, right, is planning for it though, right? And you can't figure out how you're going to pay for college at the last day of your senior year of high school, right? You can start working those summer jobs in preparation for college, right? You can start working, and setting aside money for college, even if, maybe the parents don't have enough to do 529s or all these different things, right? As an individual, you can take those steps to figure out, to start putting money away. You can take on the steps to find scholarships, right? There's a lot of scholarships out there. You can put in the work to find
ours,
them. Right, like ours, yeah. Right, but it doesn't, you can save up to not have to take out student loans, right? Because we know that just digs such a big hole. And then the second part, what you mentioned too, is working through college, right? It's not just go to college and it doesn't have to be just go to college, sit around, try to get good grades and wait for the next social event to happen. I don't want to dig a big hole. I don't want to have to climb out of this thing at the end of it with all this student loan debt. So how can I work during the year? Again, not just to fund the parties and the going out and the different things, but how can I work to start to take out less student loans? How can I work so that I can start paying for college without getting more and more in debt?
I just thought of one more thing. What about the guys who take out the loans and then don't get the degree? Like we said, like men, I don't know what the rate is, but it's kind of big.
Right.
These guys aren't finishing.
Absolutely.
So they're spending all this money.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. And you got to be ready for it, I guess. You have to ask yourself, am I committed to this?
Right.
And I kind of took that. I never really had to worry, like the way I'm wired, I'm gonna, whatever I start, I'm gonna finish. But there are a lot of people that aren't cut out to finish.
Right. Or you can look at it like graduate programs too and things, right? I just listening to a Dave Ramsey podcast, right? And he was talking to these people that wanted to go and do a nurse that wanted to go and do a CRNA school, right? CRNA is a great profession, make really good money, but you take on a big chunk of debt to do it. And he was pushing them to save up in advance for it, right? Because what happens if you don't finish? What happens if you make it through a year and a half of a 2-year program with $150,000 in debt in the same lower paying job you had before because you didn't complete the program?
Yep.
That can be a real problem.
Absolutely. So to wrap it up here, okay, we believe that you can go to college with confidence, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
New tagline.
Switch it up a little bit. So, hey, if you guys would like to talk about your college plans, you can schedule with us at peakwm.com. And there's a scheduling link on the website. And I would love to give you a second opinion. So, anything else? I think that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take care.
See you next time.
You've been listening to certified financial planner Nick Hopwood and accredited investment fiduciary Jim Pilat on the Finding True Wealth podcast, sponsored by Peak Wealth Management. You can learn more about Peak Wealth Management by visiting peakwm.com or follow on Twitter at nhopwood1.